This episode is with Micah Battino, a YouTube content creator. In his channel, Tuck In, Micah creates cooking and food-related videos. Thank you for being here, and I hope you enjoy this episode. First of all, thank you for making time and everything. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah,
Happy to do it.
Time is always a valuable asset of ours, so I always appreciate whenever someone is willing to give some time and do this.
Yeah, for sure. So it looks like you've been doing this for about a month.
Yeah, I mean, I started the channel or the podcast about a year and a half ago, actually. And I was doing it differently to what I do right now. I was just kind of speaking by myself, and so I didn't have anyone on here or anything. I just spoke about topics that I liked or found interesting. And after a while of just doing it by myself, I got bored. I was like, I don't know, just speaking up to the microphone by yourself, kind of reading off of your notes wasn't my favorite thing. And so I was like,
right,
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna take a break from it, whatever, do something else. And then about a year and a half later, I wanted to jump back into it, but now do it differently and actually invite people.
right.
And I started doing that, reaching out to the people that I thought had interesting takes on things or do something interesting. And so that's been a lot more fun. And it's been a lot easier to keep up and actually want to continue doing it, because it was hard when I just spoke with myself, since I wasn't enjoying it that much. It was hard to really be willing to put in that time to record, edit, all that stuff. But since I actually enjoy this more so than speaking to myself, right? So now, when I actually get to talk to people that I want to talk to, that's or get to listen to their perspectives as well. That's cool. That's a cool thing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, like, I especially starting out on like YouTube and like as a podcast and everything, like, you're getting what, like 10 views a video, or like, 20 maybe if you're like, that's like a good day,
Yeah,
like,
best video has been like 70 something.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, like, so you're, like, you have to like doing it, because you're not going to get that instant gratification. And so you got to be able to make it through the slog of kind of just being in your own little echo chamber for a while. So
right.
I definitely get that.
I'm not, of course you want to grow and be able to get an audience and have people watch the things that you do, or listen to your episodes and podcasts, right? If we're talking about strictly just the audio form, you want to be able to get to that point. But I'm okay, and I've told myself, in the process of me achieving that, I am, like you said, I'm enjoying it, and I'm learning things from the people that I'm talking to. I'm taking away things that I find valuable or cool information or just something interesting in general. And so I'm able to do that and focus on that right now, and everything else kind of just come in, as I progress with this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I always try to improve at least one thing with every video I do. If it's taking different like shots at different angles, if it's, like putting in a little bit more work on editing, or like, using different editing techniques, or like I recently, like, just like I went from like a $40 like Snowball like blue USB microphone to like I got a little bit of a more nicer setup, for audio and voiceover and stuff. So it's like these little things, these little improvements, and like they add up, as long as you're like keep on integrating them into like whatever you're making.
Yeah. You don't start off the bat just with everything, all the tools from knowledge, nor like all the tools, physical tools, the microphones, the best cameras, all that stuff. Right. So you gotta work your way up there.
Yeah, I mean, if you were drowning in, $20,000 worth of recording equipment, like you'd still be making bad podcasts and YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Like that's just because you don't know what you're doing. Like
Yeah.
that's the
You
nature
learn.
of like starting something like this, right? So it's definitely a journey.
Yeah. So,
Uh,
I mean, now that you mentioned a little bit of kind of what you've been doing, what do you
sure.
actually explain? What do you do?
Yeah, so I guess like the label that I've given myself is a food content creator, mostly focusing on YouTube recently. But also do like some short form video like TikTok and Instagram and that sort of thing. And just like I have a little blog where I kind of, have some thoughts about cooking and food. And so it's kind of a combination of those things that kind of make up like what I do.
Yeah. Have you always been interested in the culinary industry and stuff like that?
No.
Not so much industry, but food in general.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, like you have a lot of these food bloggers and, people like personalities who like they talk about like growing up and like having this culture in their household of like making good food. And like, I grew up in a household with a single mom of three kids working multiple jobs. And so like dinner was just like whatever she could get on the table, like in terms of like just, after, going to school and working and doing all those things. And so like it wasn't really a focus. And it wasn't until probably in my mid 20s when I like really started to get interested in cooking. Like before that, it was kind of just like frozen meals and jar pasta sauce and, the whole thing. And then it just kind of became something that really like I found myself with a little bit of extra time and I didn't want to spend it like playing video games and drinking anymore. I wanted to do
Yeah.
something like productive. And so it's like this hobby that can really kind of take over your life, usually in a positive way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. It started as a stress reliever. I've worked a pretty stressful job for a number of years. And so that was like my, um,
Getaway.
like, yeah, absolutely. For
Yeah.
sure.
What got you into it? Like what made you want to start trying it out?
So, um, there's really like and there's not a lot of these types of things that I can point to in my life, but in this, like, there was a specific like weekend. It was a Sunday, and I remember just like wanting to just like I had just had a free afternoon, and I like couldn't figure out like just what to do with myself, and so I remember like just ending up in the parking lot of a Harris Teeter grocery store, like staring at my phone, like just watching different YouTube videos of like people cooking, and like just decided like I'm just gonna try just cooking this one thing, and it was a Felicitas Pizarro video, who she's an Argentinian YouTuber who does food content, and at the time she was doing videos in English. Now she's switched over completely to Spanish. But it was just like a chicken, like sticky kind of chicken drumstick like recipe. And so like I went into the store and I bought all the ingredients and I came home and I made it. And then just kind of like in that process of like doing that little bit of research, like realizing that I guess before, like when I wanted a certain type of food, like I'd have to find a restaurant, right? And like hopefully there was one in my area that served like that type of food that I wanted, right? And then just kind of like realizing that I could literally just have pretty much any food I wanted to, like I lived near international grocery stores and, and like I have the time and, like it's a skill you can teach yourself. So like, just the exercise of sitting down and just thinking like, what is like the best thing that I can think of to eat right now? And then just being able to like go ahead and make it and like have it. That kind of sparked a lot of interest in me. So like then I spent a lot of my spare time from that point
Yeah.
on just doing that. So
Did you always want to do YouTube, or were you thinking more alongside of the like a chef kind of thing?
no, I like neither. Like it was just like
Oh,
when I first started, I just like
yeah,
really
when you first
enjoyed.
started. Okay.
Yeah, I was just like making food for myself and eating it, and then like making food for other people. And then the YouTube thing came a while later. I'd probably been cooking for probably like 8 or 9 years by the time this started. It really,
Right.
really just started in the beginning of this year. So
Okay. This year. Okay. So January, February.
yeah, so at the end of last year, I kind of like stepped back from the career path that I was on. I worked in construction. I actually built restaurants,
Okay.
which is funny because
Yeah.
I never worked in a restaurant except for a McDonald's when I was in high school. Um, but like, yeah, so like, I mean, I just build them. Like people would ask me, like when I say that, people think like, oh, do you design them or do you like, no, I just build them, and then like, you know, somebody else comes in and they make the food and have their business and all that stuff. So um I was just like really, really seriously burnt out. I'd actually been living on the road for 2 years. So for 2 years, I didn't have an apartment or anything. I was just living in Airbnbs and hotels, just going to different parts of the country building restaurants. And so I decided to kind of like stay in one, like settle in one spot and, you know, do um, something else. And then so like the beginning, January, February was really me just kind of like just detoxing from like work, but then like kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next. And this was what I this is what I came up with.
Yeah. What
So
made you go into the YouTube scene?
um that's a good question. I mean, like part of it is because like that's where I learned how to cook, right? So like,
Okay.
you know, like I mean, and so and it I, like as far like right now, like it's still like short form video is still is very interesting, and it's like the way it's evolving and like getting bigger and bigger is like very cool to see, and I'll definitely get more into that. But having the time to take with your audience and kind of like go through a full thought exercise of comparing fresh ingredients and pre-made ingredients, or you know, really like getting in depth and like how to cook a certain dish or something like that, like that's more kind of what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So YouTube is really like really the only platform for that. I mean, Vimeo exists, but I'm not sure, you know, how many people actually use it. um
Yeah. I think food in general, and over the course of the pandemic, when people were locked down, and just over the past years, it's gotten, I think, the outreach, I feel like, at least the outreach that food is um giving, I guess, the I think more people are starting to get into this scene of wanting to eat better, healthier food, and just feel better about themselves. There's a lot. I think, of course, over the course of the pandemic, we were locked down, so people wanted to, they had to cook inside. The restaurants were closed, right?
right.
So I think more people started to get into those kinds of things, and I think it's somewhat grown. I feel like, especially, you see all these, like you said, you mentioned the short form videos you see on TikTok all the time. These people cooking um these quick 30-minute videos where they just like chop out the parts and put it together. I follow this TikTok account, for example. It's not it's not savory meals. It's like they make ice cream, and so each episode is a different type of ice cream, and it's kind of like the same format of cutting it up and putting it
Right.
into this short form video. It's like 20 seconds. But by the end of it, you're like, man, that looks so good. Like sometimes I'm curious if they actually have a full length video, kind of like things that you do, so that I can then maybe learn how to do that. So I think that's grown. I think it's pretty cool that you're getting into it now, because I think it's something that's on the rise.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fastest growing, like TikTok is the fastest growing social media platform, and it has been for at least 2 years.
Yeah, oh, food
um
I'm talking about. I
oh
think
yeah, oh food,
they're
yeah, I
like
mean food, yeah,
wanting
for
to get
sure.
involved with that.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is like it's just never going to go out of style, right? I mean, like everyone has to eat every day, and like there will always be a subset of people who will outsource that to restaurants and takeout and like that sort of thing. Um, and you know, but like there are always people who, like you're right, like through like if they want to just get healthier, or if they want to start saving money because it's very expensive to eat out every meal, or if they're just kind of sick of, those pre-made like frozen meals that you can get from the grocery store or something like that. Or like for some people, it's just like building a self-esteem is like they're building this, like adult skill set, um, and and like growing their own independence, right? Because once you can cook for yourself, like that's just even less people that you have to rely on day to day to
Yeah.
kind of to exist. Um, so yeah, I mean, cooking, I mean, like I might be biased in this opinion, but like cooking is definitely like a caring activity, right? Like you're either caring for yourself or you're cooking for somebody else, and like you're caring for them in that certain way.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's just, it's like one of the only universal things in the world, right? Like everybody eats food. So
I think there are so many people that kind of just go through their day and eat to survive rather than eat to actually enjoy. They're just eating whatever they can eat. And sometimes, sometimes I find myself, I know how to cook. I'm not particularly great at it, but I'm not bad eater either. Like I can make a good couple things, but I tend to not make time a lot to for this because I just a lot of my time I find myself investing my time in other things because it does like require a good amount of time to invest. And so sometimes I'd like to find recipes or things to cook where I wouldn't have to spend, I don't know, say more than 20 minutes on something and I can actually make something that's really good, right? And I think if that's something that could be made more accessible to more people, then more people would be willing to do these things because I think some people are just lazy. I'm not saying I'm lazy. I say I'd rather put my time in other things, but I think some people are a bit lazy and I think some other people just don't have time for that. And so if someone can make videos to show these people how to make something fast, but that's still really good and kind of restaurant quality food, right? Then that's something that would definitely be appealing to a lot of people.
yeah, I mean, you're right. It's a huge investment, like it's an investment of time to actually cook. It's an investment of time to learn how to cook something. You have all the aftermath of like, okay, I just cooked this meal and now I have like a sink full of dishes and my oven's a
Yeah.
mess and whatever. Um, yeah, so I like there's a million reasons not to cook. And that was actually something I kind of sat down and tried to make a list. Actually got help from a friend of mine, who like she knows how to cook, but she like really, and she loves food too. Like she like will like if we go to a restaurant or if I would make her something or like something like that, like she would thoroughly enjoy it, like visibly be buzzing, and but like just refuses to get into the kitchen and like make something, she's getting better, but anyway. And like I outsource, I tapped her. I was like, well, why don't you cook, and she like, it was almost depressing. She gave me like 15 reasons, but like you're like, there has to be a part of you that wants to do it, right? Like because there are so many other options out there, you know but yeah, I mean, like those 20-minute recipes, those, like that's a lot of what's really popular on YouTube right now is like either fast or cheap or easy or some combination of the three. um
Yeah.
and like you
Yeah.
definitely
Fast,
can
cheap,
make,
easy.
right, you definitely can make food, like good fresh food that way. But you're only going to get so far into the
Yeah. It's not
culinary
going to be
world.
the same.
Also, for some people that's enough, and like
Yeah.
even getting into the kitchen, like if that's not something you normally do, like that's a win. That's like, and so I kind of try and take the approach, like I've actually been um working on a script for a video where I do like a meal without any cooking, so like nothing on the stovetop, nothing in the oven or chopping anything, and like still at least like assembling something that is like better than what you're going to get like in the frozen section of the grocery store, and still definitely less expensive than what you're going to get like at a restaurant. um and just the act of getting in the kitchen and like kind of starting to do those things, like it's just kind of like working that muscle, right? And then maybe like you do that and then you kind of get interested, and like maybe chopping one thing isn't beyond the pale at that point, like you can do that and make your meal a little bit better. So um yeah, I mean, like, it's just one of those things where you just got to take one step at a time, for sure.
It's yeah, but you just gotta if it's something that you want to get into, it's just something that you have to be conscious about in terms of knowing how much time it's actually going to be needed. From the moment that you decide, okay, I'm gonna make, for example, about a year ago or something like that, I made some paella with my mom, right? And
Okay.
that took a while to make. But we went to the supermarket and we bought the saffron. We bought all the different seafood. We bought the rice. You buy like whatever it is, whatever ingredients you're going to need in the dish you're making.
Hmm.
It's from the moment you decide you have to go to the supermarket, and that's a good bit of time there. Then you get back. Then depending on the complexity of the recipe, that's going to take some more time to do. Then, um, and if you're just learning, it might not come out as good. So it's also something you have to consider. There's a
Right.
lot of things that go into it.
I hear that a lot too. Like, people are like, well, I make, like, I finally, like, worked up the courage and, like, made the time to make the food, and then when I actually ate it, like, it didn't taste that good. Right. And so it's like I just did all this work, and like the result is like something I don't even want to eat. Right. So that's definitely a huge challenge, and unfortunately a lot of food blogs and recipes and videos that say, like, that are just very disingenuous about the time that it actually takes to make whatever is being featured. um a lot of time, like, you'll see different, like, ranges of things, from like everything's already chopped and the oven's already preheated, and like then it's just like a matter of, like, putting everything together and putting it in the oven, and that's the amount of time that it takes for them in that video. So it's like a 10-minute casserole or something, but really it took an hour to, like, get everything ready and all that
Yeah,
stuff. Or some people even just like the amount of time that something's in the oven, it's like, oh, 20-minute brownies. It's like, okay. So that's something I definitely want to avoid. When I if I'm going to give a time how long to, like, it takes to make something, I kind of start from everything being cold and in the refrigerator or in the cabinet, like the time it takes to get everything out, portion it, prep it, then the actual cooking time. If there's any resting or anything that needs to happen, like, that all should be included. Unfortunately, like, that just doesn't get clicks. So striking that balance is, you know, something that I'm definitely
yeah,
working with, because I want to stay, you know, more honest with that kind of thing. But
right.
um,
Is YouTube kind of what you want to do moving forward? Have you ever thought about maybe, I don't know if you did go to some sort of culinary school, or if you want to look into in the future opening up a restaurant or something like that?
so when I built restaurants, I didn't get really involved with the businesses, but I was able to interact with a lot of people who run those businesses. Um, and it's just like, especially if you own your own restaurant, it's like very rarely is your job actually really much to do with the food. Like, you're running a company, so you're dealing with the people, the payroll, suppliers, account, like, and like your POS system, and like then like the equipment that's like needs to be repaired, and like that's your day to day, like making sure everyone's doing their job, making sure things are clean. Like, yes, you're making sure that the food is to a certain standard, and like making bigger overall decisions about the menu and working with your chef or whoever, depending on what kind of business what kind of restaurant it is. But yeah, like, I knew when I was trying to figure out what to do, like, I knew I didn't want to work in a restaurant. And like, even being like, I like toyed with the idea of like trying to like see if anyone would be interested in like having me as like a personal chef or something like that. And um that might be something I dabble in the future, but I don't really have a resume. Like,
Right.
I just really like cooking, and I do it a lot, and like I don't have anything from culinary school. Or And so, like, I think if I do gain some notoriety and some following from the YouTube channel, like that could open up other possibilities in the future for that, or just, you know, sticking with YouTube, like the process of creating that and like developing different videos. And that is something that is interesting to me. And like really trying to help people with, like, you know, like talking about like you end up with the food that doesn't taste as good. Like I just did a video about all about salt grinders, you know, like those little salt grinders you see, like you get them at the grocery store, like in the
Yeah.
spice section, you know, like a little McCormick or whatever brand. And like the thing about those things is that with every turn, they're putting out such a small amount of salt that like people twist it 5 or 6 times and think like, okay, I'm good. When really they probably should have put in like 3 or 4 more times the amount of salt that they should have, you know, but it just doesn't feel like that because you turned it a bunch of times. So like stuff like that, like if you're not mindful of that sort of stuff, and especially if you're not super like it's front of mind that, like, you know, making sure you have enough salt, making sure you have enough fat, like adding acid, like if that's not something that's like in your mind when you're cooking, you're just following a recipe. And there's a good number of not very good recipes on the internet. um you know, like it can, and then like a couple of those meals that don't turn out that well, like it can just be discouraging enough for people to just kind of give up, you know. And that's like, you know, obviously what I'm trying to keep from happening. So
Right, but like with anything, I think people need to understand that it takes time to, just like I said, with anything, you need to get better over time. You don't start off cooking perfectly everything, cooking everything
yeah,
perfectly.
you know, like if I could like sit down like with every one of my viewers of my videos and like walk them through certain things, you know, like then that's what I would do, but I can't. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I mean, it's not like I have thousands of subscribers. I mean, I probably could over time if like they wanted to actually meet with me, but you know, the idea is to have like more reach and to actually do those types of have those types of conversations, you know, with the video, like in the videos, and like kind of just be like showing people like, I know this is scary, or this is frustrating, or this is going to take some more time than maybe you want to spend, but like please just trust me, like just do this a couple times and then you'll get better at it, you'll get faster at it, and like you'll figure out your own little tricks of like what's really important to you to make sure to do and what little corners you can cut, you know, like it's just like it becomes a personal thing. But you know, like you're kind of shouting into the void, so you don't know
What?
how
Yeah.
many people are getting that message, you know.
You mentioned that you wouldn't want to work in restaurants. Why wouldn't you like to be a chef in a restaurant if that's what you enjoy doing?
um
Or cooking
well,
at least.
yeah, like when I was doing construction, I did something different every day, right? Like there was a different, like different projects that I was working on. There would be different projects, and then there would be different phases of the different projects. And, you know, like overall, maybe over like a month, 2 month period, 3 month period, like you kind of be doing like similar steps, but it's always different. It's always changing. Um, and in a restaurant, a lot of the time, like you're kind of doing the same thing every day. And I don't really think I do well with that. I used to do, uh, I used to be in actually, I sold software for a little while, and like going to the same place and like kind of doing pretty much the same thing every day was like, I don't know. Like some people are cut out for that, and I wasn't able to hack it, I guess,
Yeah.
you know.
So when you cook, you like to enjoy doing different dishes like frequently.
Yeah, you know, like and like of course like everybody has their go-tos, you know, like their things that they're going to make like once every few weeks or whatever. But like, you know, and that's part of the joy of like cooking is like creating variety in what you're doing, you know. And like even if it's like a similar dish or the same thing, but like maybe you just try something different and see if it works or not. Like you can't do that in a restaurant because you can't experiment with other people's food, you know. But like when you're cooking for yourself and like, and obviously like the different videos, I'm not going to be making the same thing in every video. I'm going to be making different things, or I'm going to be testing different ingredients, or um, you know, like just talking about specific topics that I think are going to impact what you're going to be doing in the kitchen. And so like being able to do that, and then even the process, like there's a process of making video, like I'll spend a day on writing a script, you know, a day on editing, a day on shooting, you know, like, and then like there's all the little stuff, the voiceover, the thumbnails, you know, like all that stuff. So, and then like kind of doing some social, I'm really bad. I'm like really awful at the social media stuff. So,
Yeah,
you know,
well, that's
like I just
important.
like, I mean, I can't tell you like how many times I like sat at a restaurant, you know, like, and like had this really beautiful meal that someone just served to me, and I just start eating it, like, and I'm like, oh, I should have taken a picture of that. Like, oh well, like I'm halfway done by now.
I've never
So
been much into.
definitely gotta.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, Jeff, I just gotta be better about that. You know,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
I was gonna say that I've never really been too much um i- invested much into taking Instagram pictures of my food or just for social media. I I'm there to enjoy the food, to eat it, not to take pictures of it. It's always more important to me. If it looks pretty, that's great, but I always
Yeah,
care, does it taste good? That's what matters at the end of the day.
that was definitely my mentality before starting this venture. But you know, like being someone who, you know, is in that kind of world, like I have to be documenting what I'm eating, what I'm making, you know, like the things that are going right, the things that aren't going right, and just like keeping that top of mind all the time. Like before this, like my Instagram presence was like following sports like personalities that I liked, and you know, like some food people and some comedians, and like just like maybe making a comment every now and then. I was not active on social media, and so like trying to make that adjustment, it's just been a process. And so, you know, it's
Yeah.
another skill set, you know, like you kind of try and get better at it every day. So
What are some of the favorite things that you like to make?
um I'm like definitely more of like a hearty meal type of person. So I love a pasta, you know, I love like a meat and potatoes kind of thing, you know, like just we're in grilling season. And even though I live in an apartment and I can't grill, like I still like to make foods that are, you know, like ribs or, you know, pulled pork or something like that, like with some, you know, like coleslaw and corn on the cob or something, or mashed potatoes. And then I like to make really saucy dishes. So like you think like of curry or like a chicken paprikash or something with maybe a little bit of a thinner sauce, like pot roast. Um, that because I find that those are the best recipes to make a really large portion of, and then portion and freeze. And so like in my freezer at any given point, I have like 6 or 7 different things that I just need to either boil pasta for or cook some rice, and then like I can eat that, you know, defrost whatever it is. And so like that's my version of meal prep, you know, like and I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to structure a series around the way I do meal prep. For a long, I've probably sat down to try and write a script for it like 4 or 5 times, but like every time I just kind of get lost in the weeds. So I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to go about that series of videos.
Yeah. How do you or how hard is it to make curry? I've wanted to try. Wait, can you hear me?
It's not hard. It's yeah. No, I'm
Okay,
just
because
I'm shaking my head because it's not hard. It's like, you know, I mean, it's just like anything else. You know,
okay,
like you have to chop some vegetables, you know, or really like it really helps if you have either a blender or a food processor. But if you end up with a chunky curry too, like that's fine. You know, it's really just all about like getting a whole bunch of flavors in there, like developing like layers of those flavors, and then um yeah, and then like and then you have this sauce that you can like put over rice or eat it with naan or both, or you know, it's just like something that's really great. And I've just always found that if you want to make something that you'll be able to kind of like um kind of like we talked about, like cooking is such a huge time investment. And especially like one thing that I see a lot of and hear a lot of is like people who are single, which I was for most of the time that I was cooking. And like just because you're single doesn't mean you have to make like like one portion's worth of food for yourself, you know. Like I kind of preach like doubling or tripling your recipes, if you like, as long as you have a big enough pot, like just make more and more and more, and just like recognizing what types of dishes are going to like freeze really well and like be something that like can keep for a good amount of time. And then like, you know, if you double a recipe, it's going to take you roughly the same amount of time, maybe half an hour or more on like something that's going to take you 3 hours to make, 4 hours to make, but you're going to get twice as much food, and you're going to be able to it just makes the investment way more worth it, in my opinion. So like,
Yeah, I agree.
that's why I like those kind of saucy dishes. Like those just freeze the best, you know. Like if you're gonna make like roasted vegetables, if you're gonna put those in, really, if you put them in the refrigerator overnight and like take them back out, like they're just gonna be kind of mushy and blah, you know. Like you can re-crisp them up in the oven. Some people do that. Most people don't want to take the time to do that. So, um, like figuring out like what, um, you know, what's gonna really keep really well and what's gonna be something that gives you a really good return on that investment of time that you make.
Yeah, where do you see your channel kind of going in the future? Do you want to continue making like recipe videos? Do you want to incorporate some other types of videos?
Yeah, so I would say my channel right now is probably 40% recipe videos. And then the rest of it is kind of just either technique videos like chopping, how to chop an onion, how to chop garlic, um, or just kind of food experiments, like things that I've wondered about food a lot. And either I'm like testing it out for myself or just like something where it's like I'm just trying to prove a point basically. So talking about that salt grinder video, I do a video where I compare like pre-shredded cheese you get in a bag versus block cheese, and like how that melts, you know. Like I did 3 different types of dishes. I did nachos and I can't even remember what else I did on that. Like a cheesy garlic bread, maybe something like that. But oh, like like pizza bagels, you know. So like just trying it kind of in different um formats and different kind of experiments, and then kind of just getting some results, because some of the things like you just like would are what you would expect, like fresh lemon juice versus bottled lemon juice. Like fresh lemon juice just is superior like in any application, is kind of what I determined. But like with the shredded cheese thing, you know, like everyone says shredded cheese doesn't melt as well, and like I tried 3 different dishes and it did just fine. So like I really like, I mean, I definitely buy shredded cheese more now because like I learned that through, you know, my own experimentation. So that's like really the kind of things that I like to do, like videos where I'm teaching you a technique or a tip that's going to affect not just one dish, but like a range of dishes that you make. And then also just kind of experiments of, you know, either a specific ingredient or like I have a little series called The Best on the Internet where I make like 5 or 6 recipes of all of the same thing and kind of see which one is the best. So that's like brownies. I did blueberry muffins, and pancakes was the last one that I did. So those are actually, because like just because you're making 5 of the same things, it's the same thing. Like I end up cooking for probably, you know, it can be like 8 or 9 hours. So sometimes I just kind of choose my weeks that aren't as busy to do those. So there's only a few of them out right now, but yeah, like those kind of things.
Okay. And in terms of content creation, down the down the line, uh, when you as your channel grows, would you ever be say interested in perhaps doing a show, like a cooking show? Not necessarily on YouTube, but maybe it could be on some sort of other streaming platform or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, I think like um just getting the message out there, you know, like getting the message out there and is really the goal, you know, of just like you can cook, you know, like yes, it will take a little bit of time. Yes, like you're gonna mess up some things, but just if you can just do these couple little things, like either the cooking that you're doing now is going to be better, or you know, you can get started cooking and you know, it's really going to change your life. It changed mine. So yeah, I mean, I'd absolutely be open to any other platforms, collaborations with other YouTubers, or you know, or just like terrestrial television or streaming platforms. You know, wherever I have an opportunity to kind of show people how to make better food and like enjoy themselves while they're doing it, like I'm interested 100%.
That's really cool. It's awesome how one can, you can, at the end of the day, you're cooking these meals and you're going to be able to enjoy them. You're going to be able to eat them, but then you're going to be able to share that information with other people that will then be able to use this information to then make that food, or perhaps with your other videos that are more educational in terms of is shredded cheese better than block cheese? And so people can start to incorporate these ideas. And I think it's awesome how you can benefit, but also other people can benefit as well. I think that the fact that there's these platforms such as YouTube where we can kind of put these things out there and teach people and convey these messages like the one you're trying to, tell, which is what cooking is worth it. It changed my life, right? Um, I think that's really cool, and I will definitely want to see how your channel progresses. Like I said, I watched your channel and I enjoyed. I think I pulled up I think it was a hummus video, right? You made a hummus video.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of hummus. I like it. So I that one intrigued me. I clicked on it, checked it out, and now that you say like the block cheese one interests me, I want to go check that one out. So I'll do that. But I think it's just cool. This platform that we have, I think, is pretty cool, and I want to keep seeing how your channel progresses because I'm definitely interested.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, like, you're right. I mean, this is like, it's an amazing time, right, in which we live. Like, anyone, the technology like is very accessible, and like, just start doing it. Like, I do wish I kind of started this a while ago. Just like the circumstances in which I was living my life like didn't allow for that. But um I mean, it's just like, like that one TikTok channel that you talked about, like, with who does, like, it's this one guy, all he does is make ice cream, and I'm sure he has like 400,000 followers, and
Yeah,
like, and he's probably making a living like just making ice cream every day, and like, that's so cool, man. And like, he's showing people how to do it, and like, I'm sure he's inspired some people to do it. And like, I mean, it wasn't that long ago, 20, 30 years ago, like, I mean, less than that really, like, if you wanted to make something and put it out into the world, like, I mean, you know he basically had to ask for permission from somebody, like a
right.
studio or something like that, or
Yeah, some
or if you
sort of
wanted to go like
program on
rogue.
TV.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I guess there were people who would like make VHSs and like mail them to people. But I mean, like, the type of reach you can get, like, the internet is just like, it's really amazing the level of access that it's created. And yeah, I mean, I mean, is this like, so if you don't mind me asking a question on your podcast, like, is
No,
this
go ahead.
something that like you're doing for fun, or is this something that you want to like turn into like a career?
Um, I think it's so that's a good question because I'm not 100% sure as to what I want to. I'm about to graduate college, and I'm going to start working as soon as I'm done so I can have money to live, right? Because of course, like, I need to live
Yeah.
off of something. So I'm going to start working. I don't know if what I'm going to work in is something that I want to do as I go into the future. I'm not sure. I There aren't many things that I can think of that really kind of draw me in so much to the point where I would be like, oh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. For the rest of my life, there's some things that seem appealing to me. Food is one of them. I've looked into not only I've looked into cooking, but I've also looked into kind of the process of what it would mean to open up a restaurant and manage one. That's one of the things that interests me. Music, I like music, and then another thing that I really do enjoy is learning, and I like to learn about. But it's not just learning; it's learning about things that I'm interested in, because in school, you know, I'm like I said, I'm about to graduate. For the past 20 years or something like that, I've been just learning things that most of the time I don't want to learn and I'm not interested in. So it's not fun when that's the case. When you just have to kind of cram some sort of information in from a subject or something that you don't like, and you have to learn these things that do not appeal to you, it's not fun to learn that way. But if it's something that does interest you, like for example, again, cooking, right? Or I'm gonna give you another example. I'm very interested in um, psychology and neuroscience. So you might have seen in some of the episodes I've done are with some neurobiologists. And so I talked to them, I asked them some questions, and I listen to podcasts where these kinds of people come on and they talk about these things and I learn. But then sometimes I'm like, hey, why didn't the host ask this question? I think that would have been interesting to know or cool to know. I want to be able to ask that. And so since learning is one of the things that I enjoy doing, I was like, hey, I think maybe I should continue this podcast, see where it goes, try to invite people here where I can keep learning the things that I do enjoy learning and ask these people the questions that I want to ask, because sometimes I'm more curious, or like even though I'll listen to an episode of some other podcast or I'll watch some other video, I'll still be curious about it because it didn't answer every one of my questions. So if I can ask the question myself, um, that's something I would want. So to sum up my point is I enjoy learning, and this is something that I'm doing for fun and I'm enjoying it. But if I can grow it to the point, grow an audience, have people enjoy this like I enjoy it, have people learn from this like I'm learning from this. If I can get it to that point and that have some sort of financial support, I would 100% be willing to look into that. And it would likely be something that I would want and something that I'd enjoy.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, let me say, just like, I mean, even if you're doing it as like a side gig, I think you've developed a pretty good format. And like, I do like, I was listening to the astronomer, just the
Yeah,
podcast, the latest podcast you were listening, and it's just like, I mean, I love space, so like that obviously was just naturally interesting, but like, I mean, it's really fascinating with, you have like 6 episodes or 7 episodes, something like that, right?
11.
Um, oh, 11. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
And I think I was just looking at the homepage, and I always forget to go to
no
like the
worries.
video tab. Um, but I mean, like, having that many episodes, when like like eventually, like if you keep doing this, you're gonna have like hundreds and hundreds of episodes,
Right.
right? Um, and like, but even in that short amount of time, being able to get these very different people who are actually experts in their field and are actually like very interesting people to listen to. I mean, like, even just that, like getting the guests is its own skill set. But then also, like, when you're getting them on, like, it's very interesting to listen to. And so, like, I mean, even if you're doing it as a side gig, I mean, it's definitely a cool thing. I wish I had a hobby that was as productive when I was your age. For sure.
And it's not just the cool thing is it's not just all this I guess scientific heavy information to take in and process, right? So there's not only I want to talk to a variety of or talk to people that have a variety of backgrounds, right? Or different topics that they like to discuss, but also when it comes to space, for example, not the I'm not sure which episode you watched in relation to astronomy, but I uploaded yesterday another episode with another astronomy student. Her name is Maria, and she was telling me about how Jupiter, for example, if you were to fly in with a rocket, how
Yeah.
you would get stuck in the atmosphere, right? And so I never knew that, and that's not something that's very like scientific, and it is scientific, but what I mean is it's not a very complex um subject or topic to grasp, right? Like some of these other scientific areas are in the
Sure.
fields. It's these cool facts that at least that's what she thought would happen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't know, right? If the spaceship went, but that's what she thought would happen. And just talking about those things, which aren't necessarily as heavy to process, and they're easier to digest. It's fun, and I get to talk about that, and then I get to talk about food with you. And then yesterday I talked to someone that focuses on archaeology and history, so I learned about that. And so it's just a wide spectrum of people, and I enjoy that.
Yeah, man, that's totally awesome. Like, yeah, when she said you thought it might be like honey, like
Yeah, exactly.
the texture of honey, I was like, that is so bizarre. Like, I would never have thought that. And like, I'm a fan of science fiction, so like being able to like get in front of somebody who knows about space and like ask them that kind of like a science fiction question that you always wondered about, like, could you just fly through a gaseous planet? Like,
Right.
100%. Like that's so cool. I don't know. Like because I'd never thought of that question anyway either. But like now I have this like thing rattling around in my brain how like there's a
Yeah,
spaceship like going into a planet and it kind of lands in this gooey honey center of the planet. Like,
exactly.
this is in
It's
my
just
brain now.
it's this cool these cool facts that you kind of learn, and some of the stuff might be um a lot more in depth, and then you'll get these other things which are just more fun, you could say.
Totally, man. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to be a part of this. And um, yeah, I mean, it's just, like if nothing else, like this is a fun way to spend an hour, right?
Right. Now, it's always good to talk to people. Now, before we wrap it up, where can people find you? Where can people find your YouTube channel? What's it called?
So
Everything.
the name of the channel is Tuck In, which is a British phrase actually. It's like basically means like to eat enthusiastically or hungrily. I'm not British, but the people who work at Bon Appetit aren't French, so I'm just gonna leave that.
Makes sense.
Um, and my Instagram and TikTok is at Tuckin Videos, and my website is just tuckincooking.com. You can find me any there, and I'm 100% taking suggestions. So if anyone is looking to try to make a certain meal or has a question about food that they've always wondered, hit me up, and I will definitely try and figure it out for you. So
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate the comments and just having this conversation.
100%. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.